Yeah, I would like to take a call on this this bill in regard particularly to clause 8. Clause 8 is a rather long and large litany of the meaning of accommodation activity. The accommodated activity means one of those things that will not necessarily be that bill attempts to codify in this bill that will be exempt from the ability of the bill. And I think to start off with, what I'd like to explain very clearly and carefully why we support and why the Labor Party in the name of David Parker has actually put up an SOP on that, abolishing clauses 8 and 9 so that we don't actually have to codify this, in a sense, what is a rather ridiculous and long list of exemptions, and rather than going to the court and having the High Court decide those matters. Now, I take into account also my colleague Parakura Haramia, his reservations about the High Court and the ability of the High Court, as has been shown in other cases, to understand and to weigh up the Maori tikanga in terms of being able to make that particular decision. But let's just I just want to look at a couple of these issues under Clause 8, and in particular, Clause 8, for example, Clause 8(1)(d). And here's an existing activity that is undertaken in accordance with a resource consent, or rather lawful granted under an enactment that was replaced by the Resource Management Act 1991. It brings in an enormous amount of latitude, if you like, into the interpretation of this bill, rather than trying to codify every single possibility, having that going to the High Court for it to be ruled on in that particular way. The commentary, and I just want to take a moment to compliment the officials here in the House, the extraordinary job they have done in putting together more than 5,500 submissions and nearly 300 oral submissions into this departmental record. The really unfortunate side of this is, I think, is that this will not be used to its full extent, because we have not had the ability to debate this bill in the way that we should have had when it is of such vital importance to New Zealand. Instead, what this will be doing, this will be research for the enormous number of PhDs and master's students who will be looking through this to show where, in fact, this government went wrong when it tried to ram through a piece of legislation that was so divisive in the country. This is a piece of legislation, I'll have you remind you, that John Key actually said that he wanted to sort out and to resolve once and for all. Unfortunately, that's not going to be the case. Well, let me come back to Clause 8, Mr. Chair, because it's the area that I want to particularly talk on. And Clause 8, Part L, subsection 1, says, and I'm quoting from the official's report, the departmental report, the purpose of this clause is to ensure that the existing marine mammal sanctuaries, and here we get into the detail, what I was describing before, the detail of this bill, that we are trying to codify every single aspect of a possible situation that might come up. So it is existing marine mammal sanctuaries continue to operate as they have done prior to the enactment of this bill. Any substantial iwi and hapu rights over such areas should have already been considered and dealt with during the establishment phase of the reserve. But of course the reserve might have already been in place, and then a customary right might be established, and the question then becomes which has sway over the other. Management activities, it goes on to say, will depend on the nature of each sanctuary, but could involve activities such as monitoring and gathering information. The point is, Mr. Chair, in this situation, in relation to Clause 8, 1, Part I, is the fact that there's the number of areas that we are attempting to codify in this legislation, as I think quite rightfully pointed out by a number of submitters. Mr Chair.
Mr Chair.
Stuart Nash.
Thank you very much, Mr Chair. You heard from my colleague